AI isn't just for tech pros, it's for you too. Welcome to Yalla Now AI, the podcast that makes AI simple, practical, and useful for your everyday life. Whether you're juggling work, family, or just trying to get through your never-ending to-do list, AI can help, and we're here to show you how. I'm Malak, a tech executive and serial entrepreneur.
I'm Reima. I'm an author, entrepreneur, and an educator. On our show, we're going to bring you real talk, real solutions, and plenty of laughs to the AI conversation. What you're going to expect from us is unfiltered banter, personal stories, and hands-on advice that's going to help you work smarter, parent easier, and stress less. Because life is busy enough. Let's just make it easier.
Yalla.
Let's go.
Welcome back, everybody. Reima and I are delighted to introduce you to our guest today. We have Alex Egeler, and he is somebody who is using AI very intentionally to help him be more present with his family. Alex left a high power, high time intensity career in aerospace engineering so that he could be more present with his family, his growing family of 4 boys, and be an active part of their lives. And we're delighted to have you here with us, Alex, and to hear your story and inspire our audience and how they might also use AI to help them in their day-to-day lives. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Tell us a little bit. I just gave a very simple introduction about you. Tell us a little bit more about what you were before you got to where you are today.
Sure. So I was an aerospace engineer mainly because I thought airplanes were cool when I was 17 years old. And that was the time that I was deciding things, and that's what I decided. And it served me very, very well. I got a job straight out of school. I found all of these opportunities. I liked the things that I was doing, and I actually thought, this is a pretty good gig. I work pretty set hours. At the time, I was working for a defense contractor, and I couldn't bring work home. That wasn't even an option. And I thought, this will be great. My wife, we were having our first son. We have these clear boundaries. I'll be done with work every day at 3:30. I can be there to pick him up. And I thought I'd set myself up to kind of be this very present dad. And I had the job that would enable that. And I liked it, and it made good money. And my first son was born. I went out on leave. So my son was 3 months old. I took over from month 3 to 6. And pretty much came back to a situation where I realized everything was wrong with my career. And it was because I didn't factor in how important the distinction was between money and time. I hadn't properly measured that. I thought my job was about making money, and all of a sudden it was about how I spent my time. I had watched my son grow up from, this little tiny helpless thing on the floor that couldn't do anything to sitting and babbling and eating. And at work, nothing had happened. Nobody did my job. Nobody, anything that was for me to do, they just piled up and waited. And when I showed up, I was like, this is not how I'm going to spend my time anymore. So that was really kind of the first, I'll say, inflection point in my career. And I left that very stable, very comfortable job to go to a startup, which I thought I would never do. I became a manager, then an executive vice president, things I thought I would never do. That company went out of business in like a flash, went 2 months from, we were days from going public to shutting the doors and sending everybody home. And I just said, okay, there's nothing to do right now. I need to be here with my kids. I need to be here with my family. We've been holding it together, white knuckling it for too long. And so I became a stay-at-home dad. And then eventually I said, okay, this really suits our life. We need one parent, with 4 boys to hold down the fort at home, but this is not financially viable forever. So that was where I decided to be a coach.
Yeah. So Alex, you shifted from aerospace engineering to full-time parenting. If AI had been more advanced at that time, how might it have shaped that decision? And would it have made your transition easier?
I think it definitely would have made things easier. There was a lot of, I'll say the hardest part of it was around sort of my identity and understanding that. And, I can see I use with my clients the ability to have chatbots help with those sort of conversations. I didn't really know who to have those conversations with. I mean, I had them with my wife because she was there. But one of the things that I found is the ability to create something that people can interact with, and they feel a little bit more comfortable doing that because it's easier to be vulnerable and it's easier to sort of pull out that piece. And so there was a lot of sort of internal processing that it took to step back from my career and be okay with that. And then just kind of the practical nature of it, saving time, figuring out how to do things quickly. It's helped so much in my business and also in parenting over the past, 2 years or so.
Yeah.
So, Alex, just to take our audience a step back, when
Mhm.
you talked about becoming a coach, can you expand upon that a little bit? From aerospace engineering to coaching, what does that mean and what does that look like on a day-to-day basis?
Sure. So I had thought that my unique skill was my ability to write computer programs that could design airplanes. And on the scale of being able to do that, I'm pretty good. But compared to the people that I worked with who were sort of built their career around that, I was just okay. What I actually, the unique skill that I actually had was I understood people and empathy really well for somebody who understood all that technology. So in that pool of people, I got promoted out of the group, and everybody in the group said, "Oh, thank goodness it's Alex." There wasn't really anybody, maybe one person who was kind of like, ugh, because they knew that I was going to do that job well and protect them and be able to lead. And I didn't understand that was really my strength. And so when I went to become a coach, I really thought about what can I do to use that part, right? To help people who have kind of the technical background or things like that, but to learn those EQ skills, to understand themselves, to do things like that. And actually, the very first thing I did around that was I learned how to program chatbots and I trained one on conversations that I'd had with my best friend to teach it how to sort of show empathy and compassion to people. And then I tested it out. And this is probably about a year before ChatGPT came out. And I got good
So,
enough at that. And
like 2020.
yeah, something, yeah, basically, yeah, late 2020, early 2021. And I saw how much progress I could make, and then how quickly the new models were coming out. And I thought, there's no way I'm going to be able to keep up with this. That the pace of what is happening in this field is way too fast. And then once ChatGPT came out, it sort of blew wide open. But I kind of saw the potential in that. And I thought, okay, well, it's not going to be around chatbots, but how can I help people find the values and skills that they have and then learn the emotional intelligence piece to become leaders, build psychological safety, things like that. So that was really where I started. And then I focused on career coaching, and that was really when I leaned into how to use AI and how to help out my clients with that technology. So that was more like 2022, 2023, basically.
I have to say, Rima, when and I were first getting to know you, you stood out as somebody who is using AI in a way that really we hadn't seen much conversation or use around, right? Like this idea of using AI to ask better questions, be empathetic, role playing the counterpart in an empathetic way, teaching based on real conversations that you had with your best friend. And that is one of the things that really drew us to you, because I think that's not part of the conversation that we're generally hearing in terms of use cases for AI or effective use cases for AI.
Yeah, I think it's become very interesting to use it that way, especially now that you can custom build GPTs and sort of present those. So I have built some of those and given them not even to clients, but just to other working parents of, okay, you realize now kind of that same moment that I had, that maybe the career you're in, the job you're in isn't exactly where you belong. And how do you find that next step? And to train it on all of the conversations I've had with my clients and my own journey and sort of the specific questions and how do you get to that? And then let them have that conversation, online with the GPT and sort it out and then, come to me, ask questions, follow up if you have any. But I think it's such a powerful tool for helping people do that self-discovery and self-reflection work. And like I said, there's a number of people who feel more comfortable with that because the vulnerability of having to share with a stranger or even somebody isn't there.
So the clients you talked about this custom GPTs that you've built. Talk us through it. The clients seek you out. They are finding themselves in a place of wanting to make a transition in their career and not really knowing what is next.
Yeah, I call myself a career coach, but I don't actually really like that title. I
Okay.
think if I were going to come up with a better one, it would be more like a career clarity coach. What I do
What's the distinction?
best is help people who have realized that the path they're on isn't the path that they want to follow anymore. And how do you take everything you've learned in not just your experience at work, but maybe pieces of your education, pieces of your life story, all of that, and put it together into the direction that you really feel aligned with? I do a lot of work around kind of three core tenets. One of them is your purpose, one of them is your identity, and one of them is your unique skills. And helping people put those three things together and find, okay, now that I know these are the jobs I want. My clients, and so that gets them to the point where this new path is exciting. It is exhilarating to be doing something new and trying it. And even though I predominantly work with parents, it feels risky to do. It feels good because you want to show your kids that life. You want to show your kids that commitment to something you care about, to that future. And even if it doesn't work out, to say, you know what, it was better to show them taking a risk and failing than it was to stay in my safe little box.
I actually just heard something about the happiest people. The question was, who are the happiest people? And we've heard studies say the people who are the most grateful are the happiest people. But the latest research I came across said that it was risk takers, people who took risk because they didn't sit with the thought of what if I had and continue to be boxed in by some version of their reality. They did something. And to your point, even if it didn't work out, they satisfied that curiosity. They did something about it. I thought that was really powerful hearing that risk takers are the happiest people.
This really reminds me of what I was reacting to as I'm hearing you both speak. So part of all this, I mean, there's an identity piece that you help them navigate, right, Alex? Part of resistance to change is this idea of loss, is that there's things that we lose, right? This loss, this grieving of what was or what could be gone, and that missing out on something. How do you help folks manage that? And you've been training the bots. Is it possible to train a bot to have that kind of conversation, helping people manage loss when they're thinking about career transitions?
Yeah. So in my experience, the identity comes down to two major pieces. You hit on one of them, which is grieving some part of you. And it also sometimes looks like a sunk cost situation of I've worked so hard to get here, I've done so much. And depending on the personality, sometimes they feel it like a loss, like grief, and sometimes they feel it like I can't give up on this. The other piece is a lot of people, it's really hard to change if the thing that you're changing serves you. I experienced this very deeply in my life around anxiety, which is I've always been an anxious person. I wanted to get rid of anxiety. And it was finally working with a therapist who said, well, let's write down all the positives of anxiety. And going through that process and thinking about, well, anxiety makes sure I'm always on time, and I value that. Anxiety is me over preparing for every presentation I give. Anxiety is everything being on time. And the cost is that my heart races in situations where it really doesn't need to. And it was seeing that reflected in my son having those same tendencies that I had and being like, oof, I need to change this in me if I want him to not experience this, right? I don't want him to have this same feeling holding him back that I do. And understanding that, okay, I didn't need to get rid of anxiety. I needed to get rid of my extra anxiety. There was some percentage of it that wasn't helping me with anything. So the identity coaching really goes down to those two pieces. It's how do those things that you need to let go of serve you? And what is the loss around that? And usually when we address those two pieces together, it becomes really clear to people how that works out. And I know the thing that we usually dig at, which I have worked with I have a GPT that does this as well, is around where did this come from, right? The identity hardening usually comes from a voice that isn't your own in your head. And so where is that voice? Where did it come from? And how do we become okay with that voice not necessarily going away, but just taking it as an idea or quieting it a little bit?
It's so interesting to me how you're using AI to tease out things that are there in all of us that we may not have been able to unthread, that we may not have been able to isolate. And then think about those things when you're contemplating a change, or you're recognizing that my current, in this case, work situation is no longer serving me for whatever the reasons are. And what are the things I care about? How can I get something in alignment with that, get closer to the alignment of the things I do care about so that we can be lit up when we're doing that work, right? Not feeling this kind of heaviness or burnout. It's called different things. And I truly feel that this idea of burnout has a lot to do with doing work that doesn't light you up.
I love that framing, Malak.
Yeah.
That doesn't light you up. I love that. I love
Because,
that.
I think about it, and I think, in thinking about my own career explorations, as you know, this
Yeah.
is career 4.5,
Yeah.
almost 5.0 for me. And I've continued to be curious and interested in different things to a point, right? And then I start to feel that thing of like, is this burnout? And it doesn't go away with vacation. It doesn't go away with a spa day. It doesn't go away with a new project or a new client. And I think it's because for me, I've reached that level of satiety, or I don't know if it's
Yeah.
a word,
Yeah.
with that thing. And now I have to find the next thing to light me up. And so I think that's so really, really unique use case that you're doing, Alex. And I can imagine it's such a gift to parents, who may feel that sense of entrapment because, as you said, like, you're now responsible for additional people and, your partner. And, at the same time, there's this tremendous workload that happens, this life load that's happening outside of your workplace, but still very much needs your time and attention. And when those things are not in alignment.
Yeah, and it is, I think, the most clear use case for AI around the work that I do with parents is in just efficiency. How can we figure out what companies you want to work for? Well, okay, I have set up a process for helping you go do that and use an agent to research which companies have positive reviews on Glassdoor for working parents and which ones, how do you find the jobs at those ones that align with what you want to do and feed all that information. And then really, like you said, the whole point is to use this technology to make your life better. And with working parents, it's always about time, right? It's always about how much time you have because there's so many more things that need to get done than you can possibly do. And I want to unburden the job search part. You want to go find a job. Okay, well, we will use the technologies to get to that as quickly as possible and also on your own schedule, right? The other beautiful thing about these AI technologies is they don't need to find a time on my calendar to do them, right? If they have 20 minutes at, 11:30 at night and that's what they want to do, great, they can go do it. They don't need me sitting there ready to do it. And they can do the bulk of their work on their own. And then it's very quick for us to touch base and say, okay, well, what did you learn? How did that feel? The questions that I ask usually once they've gone through the lessons and used the AI and done these things are around, well, what was your experience of it, right? How did it feel to do that? When it suggested this, what did that trigger in you? Those types of questions. And it's much less about me actually pulling out the information. It's more a sort of awareness to the reaction.
Reima, I'm sure you've heard from fellow colleagues, parents, I don't have the time to begin to do a job search. I don't have the time to begin to look into where I could possibly go. It's easier, less burdensome for me to just keep doing this because that perception, and it's not just a perception, but it's a reality that you're rewriting of the effort, the input the upfront investment of time and energy to even know where to apply, where to isolate those companies that could be a better fit or those roles that could be a better fit.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess my question to you, Alice, based on what Malak just shared, if you could design an AI tool specifically for the families you coach, what would it do? What would it specifically do?
So it's essentially, there's two major things that you have to get to, I think. And the
Mm,
faster you get to those, the quicker the whole process will be. Number one is figure out what exactly is the thing that will light you up and that you have some unique skill that ties to it. How does your experience, education, life, work, all of that feed in? And what can you pull out from that and say, to do this job, here are the things, right? And sometimes it's, I've been curious about this and it showed since I was 5 years old because, everyone else was sitting building Legos and I was out rummaging through the forest. And that made me like, how is that connected to this? And it's, well, I always wanted to know how nature did this and I want to be out there seeing it, right? Any of those pieces, and who knows what detail in your life is the key one to demonstrate to somebody, hey, this person is the real deal. This is really tied to their personality. This isn't just them saying, oh, I've got these points on my resume. This is who they are. Get to that as fast as possible. That's the first thing. So it asks questions. How do you get to that? And then the second piece is, okay, now that you know that, who do you go talk to? It's even less around what jobs do you see on job boards and things like that. I typically don't even suggest my clients spend a lot of time applying to jobs directly. It's just such a low probability activity. In terms of time, your time is much better spent talking to people you know and who know you, and then moving out from that into sort of, right? Most jobs are found from what's called your loose network, right? It's not the people you know, it's the people that they know. And so it could be your one connection away from that next job. And all you have to do is get that information out to everybody you know as quickly as possible. Here's what I want. Here's how it, here's what I'm looking for, what it needs to do to work for me, and can you help? And so many of my clients, literally every single one of them that has a short, under say 2 or 3 months, it comes from, oh, it was the third person I talked to. And because we figured out exactly what I wanted to do, they said, here, I know who to go to. And literally 2 clients in the past 2 months who didn't even have interviews. They just met the person, the connection was so clear, and they started the job.
wow.
Yeah, that's amazing when you can get that distillation of alignment, right? Like the things you care about, your purpose, what are you good at to match a need that an organization or a company has. I would say that's a pretty, really interesting and unique use case of AI being leveraged again, in a way, so much of the conversations that we like to have, Alex, are about individuals using AI, outside of like this enterprise idea, which
Yeah.
obviously that's the majority of the conversation in the outer world right now is about enterprise use cases. And Rima and I really like to drive it home with the audience of how can you use AI in your day-to-day life to make things better? This is a beautiful example of that. What's been one of the most surprising things for you doing this, like with this whole transition, whether it's something, a reflection about yourself, your family, or working with your clients, or even the technology? What's something that surprised you?
I think the most surprising thing has been how universal that experience that I had was. I
Mhm.
really felt very isolated in this feeling of this job that I just literally have done for 9 years every day feels wrong today, and like a light switch flipped off and now I can't do it anymore. And I didn't talk about that or really interact with anybody around that for a long time. I said, okay, I need a new job. One more or less fell into my lap because of somebody that I knew and a startup they were going to work at. And it was such a strong feeling of this is, where I am is wrong that I just took it. It wasn't, even though it checked none of the boxes, it was completely counter to everything I thought. And how quickly I realized it lit me up. I mean, like you mentioned. And so it was a decade until one of my friends came to me and said, that feeling you had, yeah, I remember you talking about it when you had your son. I have that today. I have my first, she had a 6-month-old and she said, I go to work every day and I just think, I don't think I can't be here one more day. And she said, I love this job. I've been doing it for a long time, but I can't do it anymore. And that was really kind of the wake-up call of, well, maybe that wasn't just me, right? Maybe that was. And so that was when I started talking about that feeling and posting about it on LinkedIn. And that was really when I got a lot more people who came and said, yes, I've been feeling this for years and I thought there was something wrong with me, or I had no idea that other people had the same experience. And the trigger was, in a lot of cases, around becoming a parent, that really did shift. So that was when I focused down on career coach for parents, because it was that moment of, I can't do this anymore and I don't know where this feeling is coming from, but it has to be triggered by my kids because they're the only thing that's changed.
I also want to appreciate how AI has helped you created this using AI, but also the accessibility that it allows in this space. I think about the idea of hiring a career coach or hiring a life coach. And that's something that executives and C-suite leaders have had for as long as I've been in the work world. But I also know it comes with a steep price tag, making it really inaccessible except for a very small segment of the population. So when we think about, again, you using AI in this way, you've brought this level of clarity and intentionality around the career and the next steps to probably an audience, a population of people who otherwise would have never had the luxury of leaning into these ideas simply because the tools were out of reach. The cost was a major barrier.
Yeah. And that is, the GPTs especially are kind of the best scenario, the best example of that. I have some of them that I've designed that I use specifically with clients because there's a very specific set of steps you have to take to get to using it. But there are a number of them that I give out for free that are just, it doesn't cost me anything to give it. They can go use it. And if it helps you, if it clarifies anything, great. That's the whole point of this. I got good advice when I first started this, which was, the more people you help, the more your business will be successful, and just focus on that. And that was a very easy thing for me. The selling and money part of it is the difficult part, but helping people is the part that I like. Having the ability to build these tools, and honestly, it's easy to refine them. It's easy to set them up. A lot of them, it's an hour or two it takes me to collect the information, put it together, go out and send it to a couple of my clients and say, here, test this out. Does this help? What would you rather, what would you like it to do more of? And then kind of go from there.
I have so many thoughts, really, Alex. This has been such an insightful conversation and an affirmation that where you are, if it's not serving you, there is a pathway to making a meaningful change. And you have introduced a set of tools with AI to help us get closer to that, finding the thing that lights you up.
Yeah, thank you.
To our listeners, if you all don't know, Alex is a dad of 4 boys. Correct, Alex? 4 boys. So we're going to ask you a dad question. That's coming. So as lead dad of the week, if we gave you an AI sidekick, what would you want it to specialize in? Is it bedtime negotiations, snack distribution, or sibling conflict arbitration?
Absolutely, sibling conflict resolution. 100%, I would pick that. So I'm an only child. I did not have siblings. I don't understand siblings. I don't see how that works. But it is astounding to me how quickly the tone can change from everybody is getting along to we are in a full-on wrestling match. And it is over some of the most ridiculous, asinine things that I can't even imagine. Literally this morning, we had 3 rounds of that, of finding a toy on the shelf that has been untouched for months, and then a brother screaming, "That's mine!" and then just ripping it out of his hands, chasing around the house at 6 o'clock in the morning, and me being like, it's been there for months. You don't care about, right? You only cared about it in that is the key phrase that I've learned about since becoming a twin dad is mimetic desire, right? You don't want something until you see somebody else having it. That is pretty much the dominant theory in our house. I would want an AI to help me see these things coming, right? to be watching and be like, your son has just picked this up. You need to go get something of equivalent value and hand it to his brother before he notices that, so that they will each look at what the other one has and go, hey, I want that, and just trade, right? Because that works very, very well. But if I don't spot it, right? If one of them gets something and the other one's like, I just want that, right? We will all the time, and even my oldest one will tell and be like, you want that? Go pick up this, right? And then one twin will be like, okay, and he'll pick it up and they'll be like, I want that. And he'll be like, I want that. And then they'll just trade and then this is over. So I don't have an AI companion yet, but I do have a very well-trained 12-year-old who has started on it. So with any luck, that would be unquestionably something that was monitoring our house and could see these things coming. Because I mean, any of us can, if we're paying close enough attention, be like, you should go into this room and say something right now, because otherwise there's going to be a fist fight.
Oh my gosh. Did you see that with your two, Malak?
Yeah, yeah. It's amazing, like Alex said, how quickly they went from this is my best friend in life. I have to keep him squeezed and under my arm at all times to throwing him down the stairs. I don't know who that person is. Why is he here? You're a parent for bringing this creature into our in the span of a 15-second
Yeah, right.
wheel. And I'm still enjoying that moment of, oh, how precious. They've moved on.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. That very much was my experience, but by half, because Alex has 4, I only have 2. Well, this has been such an enjoyable conversation, really, and so inspiring. Again, thank you so much, Alex, for sharing of yourself and your journey and showing us, the reality. I love the artwork behind you, with the family values and the obvious kids drawings. It's just precious. Okay, so now, as we do with every one of our guests, we have a couple of questions teed up for you.
Okay.
Okay, first one, fetish. What is in your bag? Do you have a man bag? Do you carry things around? How do you get your essentials from here to there, wherever you go?
I don't. I typically wear cargo shorts against all of known fashion, and I have even long before I was a dad. And so the pockets are usually full of my things and their things and pens and the rock that we just found that we have to save, that I have to remember to take out before we do the laundry. But right now, the thing that I'm carrying around most is this is a soccer preparedness bag. So I'm currently coaching our twins. Well, my wife is the head coach of our twins, who are 5, but then I'm also coaching another group that's even the kids that are a year younger than them, because I ran it last year and they needed somebody to do that. So on any given day, we have soccer practice where I'm helping 5-ish-year-old kids. And these are the most essential things. First, we have an extra pair of shin pads, always, because somebody forgets them. We have colorful cones. Now, these colorful cones...
Oh, those are really colorful.
Yeah, they will serve as cones they have to dribble around. A favorite game is construction and destruction. So these are all skyscrapers, and half of the kids have to dribble around and knock them over. The other half are trying to set them up. So they're running, chasing, and kicking them. There can be ice cream cones. You can put an entire soccer ball on it and try to run down the field with it as an ice cream cone. Very effective for keeping the attention of 5-year-olds in soccer.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
And the most important thing is there is a variety, let me get the video of this, of hand stamps.
Stamps.
So nothing motivates 5-year-olds to do soccer drills like the idea that you will receive a stamp on your hand at the end of that drill. So it is a series of different animals, and we hand them out to the parents, and then the kids go do it, and then after we say, oh, who wants a stamp? And then they run to all the parents, and they end up with stamps all up and down their arm, and they are happy as a clam for that.
Nice.
Amazing that window of time exists where the stamp is the satisfactory reward.
Yes.
It gets amped up from there, but
yes.
of that. All right. Thanks for sharing that. What is something that is making your life better?
It is always going for walks. So one of the things I learned when I was working on getting rid of the extra anxiety in my life was that I scheduled way too much, that every minute was so purposeful and every minute was so dedicated. And I I was very lucky at the time. I was working at a startup and we were right on the bay here in the, San Francisco Bay. I could walk out my office door to a series of hiking trails that were right along the baylands that had birds and, all sorts of little creatures. And I was just started going out there for 10, 15, 20, sometimes 30 minutes and walking. And what I came to realize was that if I didn't have any purpose to it, if I didn't go out with, okay, I need to think about this, or oh, I need to listen to this podcast, or I need to make this phone call, if I just went out, my brain would start processing whatever it wanted to. And by the time I got back to my desk, I would have solved something that I didn't even know I needed to solve, or I would have come up with a solution to something. So I've really kept that practice. I unfortunately don't have the beautiful bay right out my door, but I try to go for about a 20 to 30-minute walk every day with nothing, no stimulus, no music, anything. Just go out and see where my brain takes me. And at the very least, just note what were the things that came up, right? What are they things I'm nervous about? Are they things I'm excited about? Are they things I'm trying to solve? But what were those topics? And then do I need to do research? Do I need to fix something? Do I need to plan something? What do I need to do about that information? But yeah, the answer is 100% go take a walk.
I love that.
Yeah, that is something. I had a friend who actually wrote a PhD on every time a heroine or a hero in a Jane Austen novel took a walk. Those walks were all the analysis happened in those walks. Like they just take walks. So just you speaking and that taking a walk without a phone or listening to a podcast. I need to get that book. Let me listen to the book. It's I think we need to be doing more of that. So
Yeah, less optimizing and productivity.
Right.
And more just being.
yes.
Reima?
All
your
right,
favorite
Alex.
question?
All right. So what is your favorite snack?
All right, this one was an easy one because if you look at this, you will know immediately. Unfortunately, I'm basically the only person in my family who eats these. One of my kids likes them, but most of them don't like. They're too sour. They prefer other things. And yet we still have a family size bag here in the house. So that will tell you that is definitely an honest assessment of my favorite snack. And yeah, one of my kids can eat like two of them and then they'll be like, ah, and any of them else just stay away. So maybe that's why it became my favorite because there's no competition for it.
Competition.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Nobody's going to wrestle you for that.
Don't have to hide it. I can just leave it on the countertop.
This has been really so enjoyable, Alex. Thank you so much. If our audience wants to learn more about you, where can they find you?
Either LinkedIn, come find me there, Alex Egeler, or my website is empathicegg.com, all one word. Those are the two places pretty much that I exist online, and I'm always happy to meet new people and working parents and hear your stories.
Awesome. And we'll link both of those in the show notes for everybody to make it easier. Thank you again, and we will look forward to hearing continued success from you.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Alex.